Can you believe it? We are in the holiday season and we only have this week and next week before we jump into 2023. Time is flying by so fast, it's really out of this world. I remember when we first got into 2022, like it's unbelievable. Can't even believe we're here today. But for this video, I'm going to show you the things that you need to know for creating a scheduling page for your clients. Okay, so before I jump into this is important in case you don't know who I am. My name is Roxanne and I am the founder of Marketing Tech Mama. It is my mission to empower 100 women to be able to work from home as a tech VA in the digital marketing business or digital marketing field. Okay, so now we're going to go into why is it important to know like these items that I'm going to share with you when you're creating a scheduling page for your client, right? Because entrepreneurs, business owners, like everyone's super busy and no one wants to go back and forth to find a time to get on calendars. So having a scheduling link, it just makes that a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier to be like, here's a link, here's my availability, pick a time that works for you. Okay. Another use case, which is a popular one, is when you're building like application funnels or you're creating an application event or page or something like that, right? So for the application funnel, the client is paying for these leads, right? They're usually running ads for these leads, and the more book calls they get, right, the more sales they'll be able to make, right? So that's why we want to make sure that we keep these 7 elements in mind, because you don't want that page to break. You don't want it where people are not able to book a time and not able to get on the calendar, right? Because that is their essential key as to how they make sales. Okay. And this is actually a specialty that my agency actually provides. Yeah, so we provide that for mompreneurs. So we take mompreneurs who are in the lower six-figure range, right? And they're ready to scale their business. So we go ahead and create funnels for them to get quality book calls on autopilot. And then we use ads to run traffic for those funnels, right? So that's why it's really important to make sure this is set up correctly. And another thing to note is that with all of my videos, I try to show you the things to look out for. So it doesn't matter what tool you're using to set this up, right? Because the principles will be the same to get you through setting up a scheduling page for your clients. So we're going to go ahead and just dive in and get into it. All right, so the 7 keys that you need to create a scheduling page. So the first one I'm going to say is number of events. Ooh, let me fix this. Right? And you're like, well, number of events, what does that mean? So, and when you're using any scheduling tool, whether it's Calendly, it doesn't matter, right? They have events for it, and you can create one calendar for each event. So, I'm going to give you a couple of examples so you can see what I mean. So, for instance, I have one event that I use for when there's like new prospects coming in, right? It's a 30-minute. My availability for that is different than I would if somebody who is a client and they want to meet with me for 30 minutes, right? My availability is different because clients will obviously have more access to me. Prospects don't have the same access, so that's why I'll have two different events, one for prospects, one for actual like clients, so that way I know if I have a prospect, I give them this scheduling link. It has what they need. If I'm trying to meet with clients, then it's this event. So that's why you want to know how many events. Another example that I definitely do this for with clients is like if they have different types of funnels, right? And we use different traffic sources. So let's say they use Facebook, they use YouTube, they use Google search, right? They use AdRow, they have organic. That's 5 events. I will have 5 different events for all of those because then it's going to allow us to track for accuracy in the data to say, hey, right, this is how many events we got through organic. This is how many we got through Facebook. This is how many we got through YouTube. It's a lot easier to figure it out that way. So that's why I say the number one thing that you got to start off with first is knowing the number of events that you're going to create beforehand, because it's just going to make it a lot easier for you. The second thing then is going to be the naming conventions. Okay. And with naming conventions, um, something else that you have to consider is internal and external. Okay, and I'll go into this a little bit more. All right. Okay. So naming conventions. So for instance, for example, when I was talking about the five different traffic sources, right? We talked about Facebook, YouTube, Google search, AdRoll, organic. Okay. You want to make sure the naming convention so it's easy to tell which is which, right? So you need to keep in mind the internal name so that when you're like trying to pull up reports or anything like that, it's easy for you, it's easy for anybody to find. They know exactly which one it is. And then the external, you have to keep in mind too, because you don't want people scrolling, right? And they're trying to book an appointment, and then it says like AR ad roll funnel, right? Instead of, hey, click to apply here, right? Book your free session now, whatever that is. So that's why it's important to make sure that your naming conventions internally and externally are good and they follow a good principle. I usually like to do mines by like um, traffic source, the type of funnel, and then also the type of funnel. So like if there's two funnels, so for example, let's say we did ad roll, right? I'll put AR dash VSL funnel dash, and I'll put like the name of the funnel or the goal of the funnel or something like that, right? So if it's supercharge your leads or something like that, I'll give that an internal name of that so that I can easily go and be like, oh, this one's ad roll for this VSL funnel. Great. This one is, Facebook, and this is a um instead of like what type of funnel it is, application funnel, whatever you want to call it, just so it's easy for you to know what it is. And don't forget the external ones, the names that people are going to see when they're looking at your page. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to put that you have to know, which is going to affect number one, is the availability. What's the availability like? Okay. What's the availability like? Like I said in my previous example, so prospects and clients don't have necessarily the same access, right? So, for instance, I'm just going to share my example. Prospects calls are between Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually like 1 to 4, maybe like Eastern. That's my general availability for that. However, if I have a client, right, my calendar for meetings then will be Tuesdays to Thursdays, but I'll open up sometimes in the mornings, probably like 11 or so that they can have more access to me, right? So you have to know the availability for each type of scheduling that you want to do, right? I know some people are like, hey, I only accept these kind of calls on Mondays at this time. That's great. Then you know to set the availability for that. So you have to know that. So when you're setting up the events, you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. It's the availability for this event, right? Because the availability should be attached to the events, for sure. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind. Availability is really important, and just make sure that you get that from the client. Like, hey, I just want to make sure I understand your calendar correctly and your availability. So when I set this up, it's gonna work the same way, right? The way that you want it to work. So that's that. The fourth thing are questions. So, and again, this depends because some people, I've seen application funnels or VSL funnels, whatever you want to call them. I've seen them where they got to fill out like a survey first to see if they even qualify, and then they get to the booking schedule. I've seen some where everybody can go to the booking schedule, the scheduler, but there's questions that are on there, and those questions will kind of help to determine, right? Like what information you need from the call. So I'll give you a couple of examples. For me, anytime I have a new prospect call, I always have this question on that booking event that's like, well, why? Like, why now is the time that you need the marketing help? Because I really want to know that. I want to know, like, are they serious or are they just kind of fishing around trying to see if they can, right, get the information that they need? Or they're like, hey, I really need this now because I have this deadline. I don't have time. I don't know who can do this. And I trust you to get it done. Okay, so that's an example of that. Also too, for other questions, like what I also do too, so my usual standard for everybody is like name and email, right? But if you want to do text messages, you have to get their phone number to do that. So you have to add that as a separate question. And then if there's just any other questions you want to know or the client wants to know about that prospect, you can add it there as well. Okay. So that's kind of like the questions are like, what information do I need so that, or my sales team or whoever is going to get on the phone with this person, do they have the information that they need where they can just pull it up and they're done, right? And they can see, oh, here's all the questions, I have what I need, right? Because it's going to help them to determine how the call is going to go. um I've seen some, what else have we had? Like I said, phone number, just asking questions, yes or no. And if you even want that, some people may not even want that, and that's fine. Like, for instance, I mentioned the phone number, right? If they can get text reminders, right? That's another way to collect someone's phone numbers. What I usually do is my default is it's supposed to schedule with Zoom. And but I do ask for their phone number just in case there's tech issues. I still have a way to contact them and to reach them besides email. Okay. So again, these are just trying to make sure that when you're talking to the client, right? If you present this stuff up front, if a client comes to you and says, "Hey, I need a scheduling page," and you're just like, "Okay," and go off, and then you come back with all these questions, they're going to be like, "What?" But if you're like, "Okay, hey, what's this? What's your, right? How many events do you want?" Naming conventions, you can probably handle that piece unless they already have something, to make sure you follow that, right? What's your availability like? What are the questions that you want to have questions on there? If so, what are they? And I'm telling you, people are going to value you because you're coming to them with this information, right? They don't have to chase you and come to you and ask you for this. When you present this stuff, it's like, okay, she knows her stuff. She knows what questions to ask, and she can get it done. Okay, so we're going to go through the rest of it, because the rest of it, too, again, when you present this to your clients, it's just going to make you look more favorable. They're going to want to be like, we got to hire this person. Okay, she knows what she's doing. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about now is the thank you page. Okay. And this gets forgotten about sometimes, but again, it depends on how your client's business model's like, what's going on. Okay. Because a lot of times they have a default one, and the default one is like, right, thank you for scheduling, you'll check your email, that kind of thing, is like whatever tool you're using, like Calendly automatically has that schedule once, right? They have the default ones. So, hey, you can ask your client, hey, they have a default one. Do you just want to leave it like this? So that means they stay on that page pretty much once they're done. And, what text do I want to just say on there? Do we just want to have the default, like, yes, you're done, you know, whatever? Generally, I would say, just for you to know, is on the thank you page, you definitely want to let them know what are the next steps, right? So it's like, hey, you'll receive an email from your advisor. You're going to receive a text from your advisor to make sure you confirm the appointment, right? Whatever it is that you want to do, just make sure that you're clear on that on the thank you page. Another option that you have for the thank you page is, hey, I already have a page set up that I want to add people, that I want people to go to. So then you'll just need to make sure that you have to redirect setup, and all the calendar scheduling software tools will have an ability for this. It's just sometimes you have to make sure you get the right type of account in order to allow you to add a redirect on the thank you page. So you can add a redirect and you can put it there. I know a lot of times I will do that if I want a pixel or something to fire, then I'm going to redirect to a thank you page, because then that pixel will fire, right? That trigger event will fire. Without it, it's not going to fire, and I'm not going to know how my data in the funnel is going. Okay. So the next thing that you definitely want to make sure is connected and it works, is once someone books a call, what are the email automations? What does that look like? How does that look like? Right? Are you going to just use the scheduling tool itself and have it schedule something there? Right. And then because, like, for instance, Calendly schedule, once they all do this, they'll have their own, reminders. They'll set a reminder for you for the calendar event. And you can just have that built in. Some people would also want that and to go to their CRM, right? So they can be nurtured and learn more about them. So they're not only just getting reminders for their appointments, but they're also knowing more of who is this person, why you need to show up to the book, right, to the appointment in the first place. What can you get from it? So those are just kind of two ways to do it. You can just use the default one by itself, or you can also use your CRM, or you can use a combination of the two, right? I've set this up all those ways that I've mentioned. So you can do that too. The next thing is something that's similar, but it's text automations. So text automations, uh, again, your scheduler will have it. You do have to pay. The client will have to pay a separate fee for each time a message goes out. Okay, so that is separate for that. You can do it in CRMs. There are CRMs that allow you to have texting capabilities as well. Again, that's going to be a separate charge. Or there are other tools like texting tools that you can integrate possibly with your other scheduling as well that can still send out the text messages for you, right? So generally, I kind of like the idea of doing the default in the scheduler, especially for text, just because it's going to be very timely. It's going to know the time, it's going to send that out, it's going to be really quick. And I mean, you definitely can do like the other automations, but again, it depends on the client's strategy and what's the client trying to do. Because if the client is wants to continue with text messaging, with sending text to their contacts on a continuous basis, then I would do the default scheduler one, and I would connect it to their text messaging tool, whatever that is. I would do that for both. So that way they have both things. They can get the reminders and they can also get the nurture text again. But that depends on their strategy, because if they're just like, oh, I just want to send them the reminders, I'm not going to message them afterwards, then that should be fine. Because if that does change, you can always go inside your scheduling tool and import the numbers anyway and get it and add it to the text strategy. Okay. So it's going to be that you can do either or, it's totally fine. So all right. So, yeah, so you can see why, like, if you're coming to the clients, right, with these seven things and you're asking this questions and you're just, hey, I need to know this so I can make sure this is scheduled and this is created correctly, it's going to give you a bigger, higher advantage than anybody. And why I'm telling you this, because this was my journey. This is what I go through, right? My clients know when they come to me, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, right? I take charge and I take lead in my calls, but that's because I've had the experience to know, to be able to take charge and ask the questions and make sure I get the information that I need so that I can complete the project for them real quick, bing, bam, boom. I don't like having to go back and forth all the time. It's pretty annoying, right? So I want to hear from you now. So, like, have you ever created a scheduling page for your clients before? If you have, do you agree that these are the things you need to make sure you have before you create the scheduling page? And if you've never created a scheduling page and you use these tips, do you find these tips to be helpful? Okay, so that's it for today's video. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe my channel so you can be notified when new content comes out. I also write about being a technical virtual assistant on my blog at marketingtechmama.com/blog. That's it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me. Um, Till next time.